The Adventure of the Engineer's Thumb. A Sherlock Holmes story. Adapted for English learners or B1 level. Chapter 1. A Strange Patient. I am Dr. Watson, a friend of the famous detective Sherlock Holmes. Most of the cases I brought to Holmes came from the newspapers. But this story was different. I brought this case to Holmes myself because it began in my own doctor's office. It was a summer morning in 1889. I was still sleeping when my maid knocked on my door. "Doctor," she said, "2 men are here from Paddington Station. They are waiting for you." I dressed quickly and went downstairs. A railway guard was standing outside the door. He whispered to me, "I've got him here, Doctor. He needs your help." He left before I could say thank you. I opened the door and went inside. A young man was sitting at the table. He was about 25 years old. His face was pale and he looked very tired and frightened. Around one of his hands he had wrapped a handkerchief. It was dark red with blood. "I am sorry to come so early, Doctor," he said, "but I had a terrible accident last night. I arrived by train this morning. Someone at Paddington Station told me to come here." He gave me his card. It said, "Mr. Victor Hatherley, hydraulic engineer, 16 Victoria Street." "Don't worry," I said. "Let me help you. First, tell me your name." "Victor Hatherley." I looked at his injured hand. Then he suddenly began to laugh, loudly and strangely. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of a man who has been through something terrible. "Stop," I said firmly. "Drink this." I gave him some water with a little brandy. Slowly the color came back to his face. "I'm sorry," he said. "I feel very foolish." "Not at all. Now let me look at your hand." He unwrapped the handkerchief. I took a breath. 4 fingers, but the thumb was completely gone. It had been cut off at the root. The wound was deep and ugly. "Good heavens," I said. "This is very serious. Was it an accident?" "No," he said quietly. "Someone tried to kill me." Chapter 2. Hatherley's Story. I cleaned and bandaged the wound carefully. Then Hatherley told me his story. "I am an orphan," he began. "I live alone in London. I have been a hydraulic engineer for 2 years, but I have very few clients. I have almost no money." A hydraulic engineer designs machines that use liquid, usually water or oil, under pressure to do heavy work. These machines can press, cut, or lift with enormous force. "Yesterday afternoon," Hatherley continued, "a man came to my office. His name was Colonel Lysander Stark. He was a tall, very thin man with a sharp face. He had a slight German accent. Colonel Stark had offered Hatherley a job. The pay was 50 guineas, a very large amount of money for just 1 night's work. "He told me his instructions," said Hatherley. "I must travel alone at night. I must not tell anyone where I was going. He said he had a hydraulic press, a large machine, that was not working properly. He wanted me to look at it and tell him how to fix it." "And why must it be secret?" I asked. "He said he was digging something valuable from the ground on his land. He did not want his neighbors to know, so he needed complete secrecy." Hatherley had felt uneasy. The man's cold eyes, his strange manner, the unusual conditions, none of it felt right. But the money was very tempting. He needed it badly. So he went. He took the last train to a small station called Ayford in Berkshire. At the station, Colonel Stark was waiting in the shadows. He grabbed Hatherley's arm and pushed him quickly into a carriage. The windows of the carriage were made of frosted glass. Hatherley could not see anything outside. They drove for over an hour, though the colonel had said the house was only 7 miles away. At last, the carriage stopped. Stark pulled Hatherley into a house and slammed the door shut behind them. It was dark inside. Then a door opened and a woman appeared, holding a lamp. She was pretty, and she wore a dark dress. She spoke to Stark in a foreign language, and when he answered her, she looked frightened. Stark showed Hatherley to a small room to wait. But a few minutes later the woman came back alone. "Go," she whispered. "You must leave. This is not safe for you. Please, go now before it is too late." But Hatherley did not go. He had come a long way. He had a job to do. He thought the woman was perhaps being dramatic. He waited. Chapter 3. Inside the Machine. Colonel Stark returned with another man, a short, fat man named Ferguson. Together they took Hatherley upstairs through long, dark corridors and narrow staircases. The house felt empty and cold. At last they stopped at a small door. Stark unlocked it and led Hatherley inside. The room was tiny, barely big enough for 3 people. The ceiling was made of heavy metal. The floor was made of iron. "This is the inside of the hydraulic press," said Stark. "The ceiling comes down with enormous force. It can crush anything below it. Now, tell me what is wrong with the machine." Hatherley examined the machine carefully. He found the problem quickly. One of the rubber seals around a driving rod had shrunk slightly. This was causing the machine to lose pressure. He explained the problem to Stark. But while talking, Hatherley looked more carefully at the iron floor. He saw a crust of metal on it, dark and thick. He bent down to look more closely. It was not from digging earth. The machine had been used to crush metal. He looked up at Stark. "I see now what your machine is really used for," said Hatherley. He regretted the words immediately. Stark's face went hard and cold. Without a word he stepped back, slammed the small door, and locked it from outside. Hatherley pulled at the door. He shouted. He kicked it. Nothing. Then he heard it, a low mechanical sound, a clanking noise. The machine had started. He looked up. The heavy metal ceiling was coming down. Slowly, then faster. Hatherley screamed. He threw himself against the door. He pulled at the lock with his fingers. But the ceiling kept coming. Lower and lower. He was running out of time and out of space. Then he saw it. A thin line of yellow light between 2 wooden boards in the wall. A hidden door. He pushed it hard, and it swung open. He threw himself through and fell onto the floor of a dark corridor. Behind him, he heard the terrible crash of the metal ceiling hitting the iron floor. He lay still, breathing hard. Chapter 4. Escape. A hand grabbed his wrist. A woman pulled him to his feet. It was the same woman who had warned him before, the woman called Elise. "Come," she whispered urgently. "They will look for you. Come now." This time, Hatherley did not argue. He ran with her down the corridor and down a staircase. At the bottom, they heard shouting, men running on the floors above and below. Elise opened a bedroom door. Moonlight came through the window. "Jump," she said. "It is your only way out." Hatherley looked out the window. The garden was below, about 30 feet down. He climbed onto the window ledge. At that moment, Colonel Stark appeared at the bedroom door. He was holding a cleaver, a large, heavy blade. Elise threw her arms around him to stop him. "Fritz, stop!" she cried. "You promised. Let him go." But Stark pushed her aside and rushed to the window. He swung the cleaver at Hatherley's hands as he hung from the ledge. Hatherley felt a sharp pain. He lost his grip and fell into the garden below. He lay on the ground for a moment, then got up and ran into the bushes. He ran hard. But then a terrible dizziness hit him. He looked down at his hand. His thumb was gone. Blood was pouring from the wound. He tried to tie his handkerchief around his hand. Then he fainted. When he woke up, it was morning. He was lying in a hedge near the road. He looked around, confused. There was no house to be seen, no garden, no carriage. But just down the road was the train station. He walked to the station. He asked the porter about Colonel Lysander Stark. The porter had never heard of him. He asked about the carriage. The porter had not seen it. Hatherley took the early train back to London. He came straight to my door. Chapter 5. Holmes Investigates. After hearing this extraordinary story, I took Hatherley to see Sherlock Holmes at 221 B. Baker Street. Holmes was relaxing in his armchair when we arrived, wearing his dressing gown and reading the newspaper. He welcomed us warmly, ordered a cooked breakfast, and settled Hatherley comfortably on the sofa with a pillow and a glass of water. "It is easy to see that your experience has been no ordinary one, Mr. Hatherley," said Holmes. "Rest and tell me everything." Hatherley told his story again. Holmes listened without interrupting, except once, to ask about the color and condition of the horse that had pulled the carriage. It was a fresh chestnut horse. When Hatherley finished, Holmes went to his bookshelf and pulled out a large scrapbook of newspaper cuttings. He found one from a year earlier and read it aloud. "Missing Mr. Jeremiah Hailing, aged 26, a hydraulic engineer, left his lodgings at 10 o'clock at night and has not been heard of since." Hatherley stared. "Then I was not the first." "No," said Holmes. "The previous engineer was not so lucky as you." Holmes stood up, his eyes bright with interest. "Now," he said, "let us find this house." Holmes worked quickly. He studied a map. Hatherley had been driven for over an hour, though the colonel had said the house was 7 miles away. The carriage used only one horse, a fresh one that started from Eford. Holmes calculated the likely distance and direction. "The house," said Holmes, "must be within a short distance of Eford itself." That afternoon Holmes, Watson, Hatherley, and 2 police officers from Scotland Yard took a train to Eford. Holmes directed them along the roads he had calculated. They had not gone far when they saw a column of dark smoke rising from among the trees. The house was on fire. Chapter 6. The End of the Mystery. By the time they reached the house, it was burning strongly. Firefighters were already there, throwing water on the flames. But the criminals were gone. A local farmer said he had seen a cart carrying several people and some heavy boxes, driving quickly in the direction of Reading early that morning. They had escaped. The firefighters searched the burning house. They found large amounts of nickel and tin stored in an outbuilding, but no finished coins. The boxes the criminals had taken were probably filled with counterfeit coins, fake money, which they had been making secretly in the countryside. The machine was not really for digging earth at all. It was a coin press. The criminals had been making illegal coins out of cheap metals. They had needed an engineer to fix their press, but they could not risk anyone knowing their secret. On the window ledge of the second floor, the firefighters found something small and pale. It was Hatherley's thumb. As they rode the train back to London, Hatherley sat quietly for a while. Then he said, "Well, I have lost my thumb, and I have lost my 50-guinea fee. What exactly have I gained from all this?" Sherlock Holmes smiled. "Experience," he said. Colonel Lysander Stark, Mr. Ferguson, and Elise were never found. They disappeared completely, and no one ever discovered where they went, but the mystery of the engineer's thumb was solved.